Let me begin this morning. I want to begin this morning by sharing two sayings that I think everybody here can relate to. The first one goes like this. Some people aren't loyal to you. They are loyal to the ways they need you. And once their needs change, so does their loyalty. And the other one is, don't fear the enemy attacks you. Fear the fake friend who hugs you. Isn't that the truth? I mean, haven't we all been there? This is a common experience I think we've all had, where we've been betrayed by individuals, people we thought we could trust. We trusted them and we shared things that you only share when you're extremely open and vulnerable. And then later on we learned that in the back rooms, their faces were contrary. They said contrary things to what they had said to your face. It hurts. It hurts, and if it happens enough, we become incredibly distrustful of just about everyone. Everybody experienced that at one time or another? I think so. Even Jesus experienced this, probably his whole life, but we know for sure, time and time again, when he was confronted during his ministry by religious leaders who feigned interest, I suspect, only to attempt to uncover things that might discredit him, get something on him, or advance their own cause. We're familiar with some of the stories that maybe we didn't think of them in this fashion, but I think you could lump them together. Remember, 10 lepers came to Jesus to be healed, right? How many said thank you? 1? You think Jesus felt betrayed? 5,000 people sat on the shore of the Sea of Galilee and listened long enough to the Sermon on the Mount to get fed. Then they too are gone. We don't read of any people coming up and talking to Jesus. Do you think he felt a little betrayed? And when the going got tough, Jesus' strongest ally, Peter just got going, right? And denied him 3 times. And of course, there was Judas. And whether we think of it or not, Judas was one so close to Jesus that at the Last Supper, he was given a seat of honor. A seat of honor. He was the treasurer. And yet, he sold out. The truth is, friends, whether you're reading it in the Gospels or reading it in your own life, there are very few people that you can truly share your deepest thoughts, fears, emotions, whether they're good, bad, or ugly with. There are very few people that you can do that with. My closest mentor 38 years ago when I began parish ministry, he said to me, remember, Keith, throughout your career that everyone who nods their head yes doesn't agree with you. Likewise, he added, he said, beware of the first person who runs up to greet you when you begin a pastorate because they have an agenda. Why is this? Human nature? Original sin? Who can say? I can't say why it happens. I think we just all can agree it is a reality. So at the end of John's Gospel, here we have the crescendo of everything that has taken place in his ministry. All of these feelings, this pushing and this pulling, and I don't know if he actually knew where everybody stood, but we have here the pinnacle scene of the whole thing as he's hauled before Pilate. It's a life and death finale. He was arrested at midnight, and he was taken before the Sanhedrin, and the Sanhedrin was made up of the Sadducees who ruled at the temple and the Pharisees who pretty much were in the outlying areas, and they didn't particularly get along that well, and they came to a verdict. But one of the reasons they couldn't execute Jesus, because that was their agenda, was they didn't have a quorum. So they couldn't do that. And I find it ironic because if you read early in Matthew, do you remember the story when Jesus was 12 and his parents lost him? They were in Jerusalem. His parents lost him. They found him at the temple. And the religious leader said, "Man, this kid is amazing." I have to believe that some of those people who said he was amazing are now threatened by him. Maybe even some of the people who testified against him were people he healed. In any case, he is found guilty, and Caiaphas, the high priest, they take him before the secular powers of the world. They take him before the world. There is no religious anything involved in this part of the story. This is all about law and power and Rome. They take him before Pilate, and Pilate was an up-and-comer. Pilate was somebody who had political ambitions. Pilate was ruthless. And of course, if you were not Roman, you had no rights at all. So Jesus is found on trial before the most powerful man in Judea. And I have to add one more thing to this. At the time this takes place, Tiberius is the Caesar over Rome, and if you know anything about Tiberius, you know that he was pretty cruel, a little perverted and twisted, and very paranoid that someone was going to take power from him. In fact, he passed a series of laws to get rid of the elite people in the Senate. The law said, if you say anything negative about me, that's treason, and I can kill you. So you have to believe that Pilate, he's got these religious people coming, and a crowd is gathering, and he probably doesn't want a riot. And on the other side, he has this Caesar who's eventually going to get word, if he turns this guy loose, that these people say is spouting off insurrection. He's caught between a rock and a hard place. Especially since never once do we know of Jesus overtly criticizing the empire by preaching sedition. Here was this Jesus. What to do? So Pilate, being a good politician, launches off into the two areas he thinks he might have something upon which to build a case: truth and kingship. Kingship's going to get you killed if you claim that one, and the truth is what they're all seeking. He's looking for a crack by which to make a legitimate case, a legal case here. But it doesn't work very well either. And so he pulls out his last straw, the card up his sleeve. He offers an alternative. He knows that Barabbas is guilty of treason. That's a cut deal. Not this Jesus. I haven't gotten there. So he places the onus of the whole thing on the crowd and says, well, it's a tradition, I understand, to release someone from prison at this time of year. So which do you choose, this Jesus or this Jesus? The difference is quite obvious. And one other thing I didn't mention that is critical, because John is such a beautiful author. At the beginning of John to the very end, it's like, imagine a Broadway play where you have lights and curtains and all this sort of thing. John is always moving the reader or the audience between what is light and what is dark, what is good and what is questionable, all the time. John opens with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. And then he goes on and said, and the light shone in the darkness, and to this day the darkness has not overcome it. Nicodemus comes what time of day? Well, he doesn't come during the day. He comes at night, looking for the light. And so as all this goes on, if you read this story carefully, you see Pilate moving from the outside to the inside, from the light to the darkness. It's almost as if there's this internal struggle that's going on inside of him as to not merely how do I get out of this, but what am I going to do that not just helps me, but maybe, possibly is the right thing. So what we see really on trial here, we have Jesus, but what we really have on trial here is honesty, integrity, good, bad, fairness, justice, what the world deems as fair and just, and what God seeks as justice. It's a struggle. And it comes to a conclusion, as you know, with Pilate succumbing to the powers of the world. You ever think about what would have happened if he hadn't? What if he had chosen the other way, set Jesus free? I'll tell you what I think would have happened. I think it would just have delayed it, and something like this would have happened again at some point, somewhere, before someone. You know, a great theologian once said that love is always crucified in this world. Different time, different place, same ending. Which is why I'm going to tell you now, I really struggled with ending this sermon. So I had the choice of just getting up now and leaving, or trying to get myself out of a fix and kind of ramble on, right? No, I had struggle ending this sermon because what I want to say to you is the truth is always on trial. This is not a story from the past. This is a story for every age and every generation. The truth is always on trial. The truth between choosing the way of earth or the ways of heaven, the powers on earth or the powers in heaven, Jesus Barabbas or Jesus of Nazareth. We are confronted by these choices every day, all the time. All the time. And the fortitude required to admit that and struggle with it is exhausting. But the effort to confront it and to know it and to lunge on must never stop, because if we stop, what will the world be like then? A professor I knew at Notre Dame, he described it in this way. He said, great leaders and great people live with one foot in the center of a circle and the other foot on the edge. One in the center, one on the edge, because they always know what's going on at the heart of things, but they are always trying to stretch those they are charged to lead towards the edge, towards the new. They know what's happening now, but they want to get to the what-ifs of tomorrow. And ours is the same challenge or invitation to stretch. To stretch, recognizing that we will always endure betrayals, but we have to keep stretching, that there will always be falsehood and infactual people trying to get at us, but we have to keep stretching. There will always be times when the darkness appears to be winning. And that's when it's most important that we continue to stretch. Nelson Mandela said it this way. He said, it always seems impossible until it's done. And it will, it will get done. God's will get done. The scriptures say we are closer to salvation now than when we first began. And as an old Baptist friend liked to say, when things are going best is when the devil works hardest. Things are going best is when the devil works hardest. But, what we know is when the going gets tough, the tough get... No. The tough put one foot in front of the other foot, and they know even if that's all they can do, it will be enough. And in our time and in this place, friends, we must continue to put one foot in front of the other and press ahead. Never stop. And most importantly, never give up. Amen.